This is Moonshot Minute, AI, work, and the people caught in between. One story, no fluff, just what is actually happening. This is the Friday Rant. Honor, interest, fear. There is no rules-based international order. There never was. What we have is anarchy held in check by the credible threat of force and the temporary alignment of interests. This week just made it harder to pretend otherwise. On Tuesday, the president met with Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, both at the White House on July 28th, while American and Iranian forces were about to trade fire again. Early Wednesday, Iran launched a missile barrage at U.S. forces in Jordan. Jordan intercepted 5. Hours later, the United States and Saudi Arabia struck Iran-backed militias in Iraq, killing at least 20. Days before that, Ukraine struck vessels in the Caspian Sea, it says, were moving Iranian military cargo to Russia. Iran calls it an attack on a civilian ship. One sailor died either way. 2 wars that were supposed to be separate are now feeding each other. The Caspian is a long way from the front in Donetsk and further still from a Jordanian airbase. On a map this week, that distance stopped mattering. These are not the actions of a system governed by norms and institutions. They are the actions of states calculating 3 things: honor, interest, and fear. Those have driven great power behavior for as long as we have kept records. Honor. For Washington, letting Iranian missiles land near American troops without an answer carries a real cost. Prestige is currency in an anarchic system. Once it looks discounted, the next challenge gets cheaper for whoever wants to run it. Trump's language this week that Iran will get, quote, a beating, unquote, that he could take out the bridges and power plants in a day, is the language of prestige recovery. The motive is not in doubt, interest. America still has a real interest in keeping Iran from a nuclear weapon and in keeping oil moving, but the cost curve has steepened. Munitions stocks are thinner after 5 months of interceptions. Tanker insurance climbs. The Strait of Hormuz stays under pressure. Saudi Arabia joining the strikes is not sentiment. It is interest calculated under pressure on its own oil infrastructure after drone attacks on Saudi oil targets launched from Iraq. Fear. Tehran fears losing the regime more than it fears airstrikes, which is why airstrikes alone rarely move it. Washington fears 2 things at once: getting trapped in another forever war and looking weak enough to invite the next test. Moscow and Beijing watch how much they can gain while the United States is busy on 2 fronts. Kyiv fears that American attention is finite and that any deal freezing Russia's current gains just delays the next round. The familiar reply is more diplomacy, more institutions, more rules. The problem is that rules only bind the actors who already accept them. Iran does not. Russia does not. China treats them as tools when useful and noise when not. The United States, under both parties, has treated them selectively too. That is not one president's hypocrisy. It is how great powers behave when nothing sits above them. Here is where this connects to everything else I write about. When someone loses a job to an automated screener, we call it a broken system. When a war spreads past the lines we drew for it, we call it the order breaking down. Both are misreads. The screener is doing exactly what it was built to do. The order was never an order. What looks like failure is usually the design showing through, working as intended. The pattern is the pattern. It is the same in geopolitics as it is in the job market. Systems are not designed to serve people. They are designed to preserve themselves. And the people at the edges are the ones who get subtracted when the math stops working. This is what I have been calling the uncounted. The people who disappear from the denominator when the labor force shrinks. The people who lose their jobs to AI and are told it is restructuring. The people who watch wars spread past the lines they were told would hold. They are not in the earnings calls. They are not in the Fed's rate decision. They are not in the diplomatic communiques. They are the denominator. The math keeps shrinking. The punchline, two wars feeding each other, a rules-based order that never existed, a screener doing exactly what it was built to do. The pattern is the pattern. The question is whether anyone is watching closely enough to see it. None of this asks you to cheer the violence. It asks you to see it plainly. Pretending a rules-based order still functions while the evidence of anarchy piles up produces policy that is both moralistic and useless. Better to name the system as it is, price the real costs of honor, interest, and fear, and then choose which risks are worth running and which are not. That is the only honest basis for strategy. The rest is performance. A note for the founders listening: if you are trying to build a team while the ground keeps shifting like this, that is the work we do at Moonshot. Visit moonshotconsultingdc.com or send me a DM. That is your Moonshot Minute. The uncounted are getting louder. The question is whether anyone is listening. Hosted by yours truly, L. David Oliver, founder and CEO, Moonshot Consulting. Bye for now.